Good evening. Welcome to our presentation this evening, which is on optical treatments. Dave Rankin hates me because I send him messages all the time. I said, what about this? What about that? What about, and I always say, I hope I'm not going to make any extra work for you. And I know darn well I am. So this kind of evolved out of that treatment because I never heard of a presentation on optics. So what we'll cover tonight may be the tip of the iceberg. Hopefully we'll answer some questions, but like Cambridge, we'll probably create a lot more questions because it seems like there's always an exception and things don't always make sense. So here we go, optical treatments. But first, most of you know I'm in education. We interrupt this presentation to bring you a quiz. And this is another little thing we're working on. What did Cambridge call that set? What did Cambridge call that set? This is the last question, I promise. What did Cambridge call that set? Okay, here we go. Here's the answers. The first one is a night bottle and tumbler. The rest of the world calls these tumble-ups, right? This is a guest room jug and tumbler. And the last one is a boudoir set, three-piece boudoir set. Our theme for convention is what? Entertaining with Cambridge. So I'm sure you all, when you have guests, put one of these sets in their bedroom, right? For fresh water. Yeah. Okay, here we go. So, optic treatments, what is it? Way back in the beginning, back when dinosaurs roamed the earth, I started to think about what I heard the term optics, and I never knew what it was. I didn't know how to look it up. And the thing that made sense to me at that time was the 3400 dart, because that looked to me optic. So then we started to do a little bit more research and found out that optics are a visual effect in glass. It's created by placing a gather of molten glass in an optic mold before the blowing or pressing operation. I'll show you a film here in just a second. And that's how Cambridge, and actually every other glass maker in the world, produced optics. So here are two different optic molds. First one is for a straight optic. So we put molten glass in the optic mold. Then we're going to work it without doing any other manipulation. We're not going to twist it or anything else. So this would be a straight optic. And we'll get into some of these definitions and clarifications here in a second. So we could all do this kind of stuff, right, without batting an eye. We'll have this on our website, by the way, and this is a clip from Corning Museum of Glass. So that's a straight optic mold. So they place the molten glass in, puff, take it back out. So the next optic, guess what we're going to do to it? We're going to twist it. So it's no longer straight ribbed. We're going to put a twist into the device. Cambridge uses those, as you can see up front. We'll talk about them in a second. The last one is really fascinating to me. I said the last one. No, here we go. We're going to puff it, and then we're going to inhale a little bit to get it back out of the mold. Then we're going to put some more air into it. And this treatment is what we call aero-optic. So it leaves a really nice, different type of optic in the glass. Okay? Who's doing that work? The Corning Museum in that glass? Yep. And if you go Visit Corning. They have glass demonstrations. Let's talk about all the optics that Cambridge did. Did you think there was this many? There's a lot. And what I did was went into the catalog, and I searched for optic, and this is what came up. Optic, wire optic, wide optic, narrow optic, twist optic, gyro optic, block optic, honeycomb optic, diamond optic, arrow optic, spiral optic. Actually, they didn't call them 1 and 2. That was me, so I could tell them apart. And 14-panel optic and caprice optic. So optic is in the glass. This is the first example. What is this again? See if you're paying attention on the quiz. Gas jug and tumbler. This one has an optic. I don't know if you can see it real well. Interestingly enough, the tumbler does not have an optic. Yeah. That's a Bluebell, guest jug, and tumbler. Then a lot of the etchings were available with optic or without, especially Rose Point, as we know. This is a gold crystal 3130 2.5 ounce wine, Gloria. Next is a 3065 3.5 ounce cocktail, willow blue blue enamel encrusted. A 3121/1 Rose Point comport. And interestingly enough, the last one is a 5-compartment relish. This one is in Rose Point, and the optic is circular. So I have 3 of these, are all circular. Why do you have 3 relishes, Larry, that are the same? I'm sick. But I'm even sicker than that because I have 2 Porsche ones, and that optic goes right out from the center. So if you have different etchings with that, it'd be interesting to check what kind of optic they have, if any. So that is examples of optic. Now we go to, let me stop here. This is the first example of an optic in the catalog. It goes way back, Rhine wine. This is originally a McKee mold, way back when. And on some of these, it will also say optic. You'll see it in a little bit, or whatever the optic is. The next one we don't have. Has anyone ever seen this? Wire optic. This is the only stem that's identified in the literature as wire optic. Wire optic goblet, again, an old McKee mold. Next is wide optic, and if you can see it in the catalog drawing, it actually says wide optic, 5-ounce saucer champagne. And this Rabina tumbler is also wide optic. How do we know that? Well, the optic is wide. So I'm presenting, I can make this stuff up. As opposed to narrow optic. So those optics are really close together, or narrow. That is a 3051 Rabina 4.5 ounce claret. The other 2 stems I have up here are also 3051. The first one is etched nasturtium, which is a really common etching. Yes. So it's so common, so if you come across a set of 8, please let me know. Any. The next one is etching number 740. This is kind of an unusual etching you don't see every day either, and that's what that looks like. And those last 2 are Cafe Parfaits, even though it may look like the next one. So next we have a twist optic. So that was the second part in the video where they put it in the mold and then they do some twisting to it. Now I know some of you are very analytical and like to make perfect sense out of Cambridge, and it drives us nuts. And you're probably thinking, well, the twist will always go from top left to bottom right. No. Some will go from the other way. And I think it's kind of like swans. Some of the swan heads are twisted one way and some swan heads are twisted the other way. I think it's the worker, whether they were left-handed or right-handed or came from the southern hemisphere, you know, who knows. So an example of this twist optic is this 12-inch vase, which is a 3400/20, which is much like the vase you see in Castle Scene and some of the others, except it does not have the optic in it. That's kind of nice, I think. So next, anyone want to guess what the next one is? Gyro optic. There is a stemmer line, the 3143 line. If you can see the stem, it's kind of twisted as well. That was not created by Optic. The bowl was blown, created in Optic, so there's a gyro optic bowl. The optics tend to be a little bit wider apart. So generally, so far, when you talk about optic, which makes sense, if you feel the outside of the piece is perfectly smooth, you would not be able to feel any pattern. Cambridge does name this one block optic. We'll get to questions in a minute. On block optic, you can feel it on the outside. So I suspect this was not created with an optic mold. We'll get to another example here in a little bit. So then we have honeycomb optic. You can't feel the mold on the outside of this, but the optic pattern looks much like a honeycomb. And Robina has a lot of honeycomb optic things. This is a night blue bowl, also in honeycomb optic. Then the next one, you should get this one. What optic is next? Oh, sorry, I didn't have an example of diamond optic. It looks like a diamond, like the, you know, another glass company kind of with the H thing. It kind of looks like that. Then we have arrow optic, and that's the one they put it in a mold and then inhale a little bit to get it out of the mold and then do their thing. So a couple arrow optic vases, and then we have a little cordial with arrow optic bowl. And moving right along, we have spiral optic down here with the ranch tumblers. I like ranch tumblers. I don't know if any of you have them. They're wonderful to use. They're nice, heavy, perfect size for lemonade, and has a nice optic. But both of these are ranch tumblers, and you can see the optic is definitely different because created at a different time, different amount of twists, etc. This is also the same thing, little fan vase with gold encrusted Dresden. Oops, actually it's a decorate. Then we have what I call spiral optic 2. You see pictures and tumbler sets in that, and you can feel this on the outside. So is it a real optic or not? But Cambridge marketed it as twist optic. Next, I kind of had fun with this because spiral optic 2, 14-panel bowl is down here. If you feel the outside, it is smooth. The optic ridges are on the inside. Guess how many panels there are? 14. You guys are geniuses. So my question to you is this optic 2? Can't feel it on the outside. There's ribs on the middle. This has 10. That's why we call it decagon. This one is a little Robina tumbler. It also has optic rays on the inside. So maybe we need to create even more optic names. Here's Caprice optic. We do have the optic mold for Caprice right up here. So the gather would go into that mold and come back out. Now there is pressed Caprice, but there are also blown Caprice items. That's what it looks like. Just for comparison, here's exactly the same vase with no optic. So if you want to come up later and look at some of these a little closer, you're welcome to. Now we have another goblet. This would be a wine glass today, right? Probably not nearly big enough. But this is, anyone know the pattern? Cascade. Blown cascade. So is this optic? You're hedging your bets here. That's always wise. You can feel it on the outside. So my vote is no. Beautiful, but no. So why would we do optics? Do you think they're good looking, something to have interest? So why Cambridge did it? Well, why did Cambridge do anything to sell glass? It does add interest. There is a hidden benefit to any kind of thin, thick glass. As it comes out of the mold, thin things will set up more quickly.